All right, welcome to Intro to Electronic Music. In this first video, we're just going to do an overview of what we're going to cover in this class and talk about the format and all that good stuff. This class is presented by Slam Academy, and it is taught by me. I am Dr. J. Anthony Allen, and I will be your instructor throughout this whole course. Okay, so first things first, who is this class for? This class is for anyone interested in diving into electronic music. I think that's self-explanatory. Those who have worked on tracks before but want a general understanding of some key audio concepts. What I mean by that is anyone who has maybe fooled around with some audio software, maybe has even fooled around more seriously. Maybe even someone who has produced music and is actively producing music, but wants a deeper understanding of maybe some of the effects they're using. Maybe they don't know exactly what that effect is doing, but they like the result of it. And hopefully in this class, you'll learn kind of exactly what that's doing, which will lead to a little more predictable results when you're working. So yes, anyone that's done some work before but just wants a review or some deeper understanding of what's going on. Lastly, anyone that digs electronic music and wants to know more about it. So maybe you don't want to produce electronic music, maybe you just dig it and you just want to learn some more about what's going on under the hood when people make it. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff in this class, like the history of audio, of digital audio. We're going to talk about, we're not going to spend a ton of time on it, but it's fun stuff. So I think there's a lot to get out of the class from someone who just really likes music and wants to enjoy it. Okay, materials you're going to need for this class to be successful in it. First things first, a computer and internet connection. If you've got this far and you're watching this video, you've figured that part out. So congratulations, the hard part is done. The second thing, if you want to do the assignments and the projects, a DAW, D-A-W, a DAW, any DAW will do. If you don't know what a DAW is, don't worry about it. We're going to talk about that a lot in our, I think in our second chunk of stuff. A DAW stands for Digital Audio Workstation. It's basically the software we use to create music. There are a ton of different ones. There's anything you've used to make music before is probably a DAW. GarageBand is a DAW. Pro Tools, Ableton, Fruity Loops, any of those are DAWs, Digital Audio Workstation. If you don't have one, don't worry about it. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about what to look for, the advantages of different DAWs over others, and if you don't want to buy an expensive piece of software, because they are kind of expensive, I'm also going to point out some open source alternatives. Those are free or very inexpensive options to create music with. There are some good stuff coming out all the time for inexpensive or free applications. So we'll have a look at some of those. So don't worry about it yet. Don't go out and buy anything until we get to that section and you get my advice on it. Okay, overview of what we're going to talk about in this class. Topics covered. So this class is going to be divided into 3 big chunks. So in the first part, we're going to talk about a brief history of digital audio, one of my favorite things to talk about. An overview of the hardware and software options. That's what I was just talking about with the DAW. The DAW is the software end of things. We're also going to talk about the hardware end of things. And there's not a lot of hardware we need anymore. Most of what we do when we're producing electronic music can be done just on a laptop. So the laptop is obviously the number one piece of hardware, or a desktop, doesn't really matter. There are some hardware things we like to have depending on what you're doing. Maybe some different controllers, maybe a keyboard. Audio interfaces are a big thing. And we'll talk about all those in that section. And the last part of part 1 is just working with audio, just how to get it sounding nice and clean if that's what we want, or getting it to sound nice and dirty if that's what we want, and keeping it clean throughout the compositional process. So we'll be talking about working with audio. Okay, part 2. A brief history of MIDI. If you don't know what MIDI is, don't worry. You've probably used it before, but we're going to be talking about what that is. In fact, that's the next thing. What MIDI is and is not. That's really important when understanding MIDI. A lot of people think they understand what MIDI is, but they don't understand that it's actually not doing one of the main things they think it's doing. So we'll talk about that when we get there. Don't worry about it. MIDI instruments and effects, and then working with the piano roll editor. That's kind of like how we organize MIDI over time. It's basically our sequencer. A lot of really important stuff there for producing electronic music. And in our third part, we'll be kind of focusing on putting it all together. So working with loops, if you're into creating loop-based music, synthesis basics, that's how to get sounds out of a synthesizer. And in our case, it'll be a software synthesizer. So we're not going to go out and buy a big synthesizer. This will be a software synthesizer. Rewire is a way for different audio programs to talk to each other. So you can be working in multiple pieces of software at the same time and have it all work together, hopefully. And then exporting tracks, finishing them up, getting the final finishing touches on everything. And that is basically everything. So join me inside in our first chunk of stuff for the Intro to Electronic Music class.